My name is Caseen Gaines. I am the author of The Dark Crystal, The Ultimate Visual History, which is out September 19th through Insight Editions, and I am here today with a very special guest.
And I'm Cheryl Henson, and I'm one of Jim Henson's 5 children, and I had the pleasure of working on The Dark Crystal when I was a teenager.
And she wrote an awesome foreword to the book.
Oh, thank you. This is a wonderful book. I'm so excited to have this out.
I actually wanted to ask you about the foreword because one of the things that you talk about is the blizzard, where you and your father were stranded at Kennedy Airport in 1978, and he actually did some work on the Dark Crystal. Can you talk a little bit about that?
I know that it's 1978 because my father had a 1977 BMW.
Oh, okay.
And we drove to the airport in that BMW, and I'll never forget that drive because the blizzard was such a whiteout blizzard.
Wow.
That it was really like driving through a completely other world. And I bring that up because I think that the otherworldly quality of being in a total blizzard is almost like a blank piece of paper. The entire world goes white. We actually wound up being stranded for 72 hours.
Wow.
There we were without much to do. And you have to remember, this is before the internet. This is before email. And when you're stranded and you're not expected to be there for 72 hours, you have to find stuff to do. And my dad had been thinking about this production for a long time. He had already gotten Brian Froud started designing characters and working with some people in the workshop. And this is one of the few films that was actually they started designing the world before they wrote the script, before they even had any idea what the story was going to be. That it was world driven and design driven before it was character and plot driven. So suddenly having some special time, some isolated time,
Some unexpected time.
unexpectedly free time to get to just focus on this production was such a luxury. And he really took advantage of it and wrote a lot.
What do you think attracted your father to telling this story, especially since the Muppets were so incredibly successful? You know, it would have been easy for him to just continue doing Muppet films and maybe doing more seasons of the television show. What do you think it is about the Dark Crystal that made him want to tell this story?
It was such a challenge that he wanted. My father was fascinated by puppetry and what puppetry could do. He was also fascinated by television and by film, and a lot of it was the world building. Like creating an entirely new world is something that was really such a fascinating challenge to him. And so I think the idea of doing something new, something that had never been done before. And that sounds sort of ho-hum, you know, you say, oh, something new, something that's never been done before. But the world of the Dark Crystal truly was unlike anything that had ever been done before.
Or since.
And so it really was, it was that specialness. It was the creating something completely new.
You mentioned him really wanting to develop this world of Froud. Do you have a favorite creature in Froud or a favorite character in the Dark Crystal?
Well, there's so many great characters, and what I love is that they're visually so rich, and so you know so much about their characters just from looking at them. But when I think of which are my favorites, well, because I was a teenager when it was all happening, I think I really, really fell in love with Kira. I thought she was just beautiful. But I think as creatures go, the Land Strider is probably one of my favorite. I think the idea of getting to actually ride on this Land Strider is really a wonderful concept. I also love the design and also the execution, how they actually managed to put these long stilt extensions both on the feet and also on the arms of the performer. And that was unlike anything that had been done yet at that time.
And what's really interesting about the Land Striders too is that idea for putting these stilt extensions actually came from one of the performers. So it really kind of points to the way that your father and the team would kind of solicit ideas from a lot of people.
Yes. Yep, absolutely. And no one more so than Brian Froud, that so many of the designs of the characters really came from inside of Brian.
One of the things that I love are just the pictures that are in here. Amazing look at the incredible world.
The book really gets into all of the individual characters and the history and how they developed. It also features many of the different builders.
And I know that was really important. You know, when you and I spoke for the book, one of the things that you really mentioned to me is making sure that all of the crew and the creative team were represented too, because while it's Jim Henson's The Dark Crystal, it really is the work of so many talented artists.
So many people and so many really extraordinary craftspeople that when you think of the amount of work, the amount of skill that went into the buttons and the braiding and the hair and the eyes and the detail on these costumes is really extraordinary.
While there's been so many new projects, why was it important to kind of take a step back and chronicle the making of the original film that started everything in a book like The Ultimate Visual History? Why was now the right time?
Oh, I think that we were really lucky that the timing worked out as well as it did, because I think that they were started talking about doing this book before the Netflix series was confirmed. And so we actually only just added the last couple of pages about the Netflix series and the creators behind
Oh, I
the
remember.
Netflix series.
I was feverishly typing.
After the book was completed.
Right,
You know,
right.
you had finished the whole thing, and we said, no, we got the green light. You're
Right.
going to have to get that in there. Get that picture of Louis Leterrier in there, you know, and some of Brian's new designs. We're so excited to tell people more about the original film, particularly right now as the Netflix series is gearing up to go into production. It is an entire world that has so much behind it, and to be able to have a document that people can look through and really fall in love with that world, be reminded of that world in preparation for the big series, the big Netflix experience, the timing couldn't be more perfect.